voice of free speech. The truth delivered. Common sense for the American people. Welcome to the Scott Jennings Show.
Jesse Jackson is dead at the age of 84, and Robert Duvall dead at the age of 95. Another act of trans violence, this time at a Rhode Island hockey rink. Cleanup on aisle AOC over in Munich. Plus, Congressman Randy Fine responds to calls for his resignation. It is Tuesday, February 17th. This is Common Sense for the American people. I'm Scott Jennings, reporting live from Naples, Florida today. And on this day, 5 years ago, the legend himself, Rush Limbaugh, passed away. We try to honor his memory every day here on our show by engaging in excellence in broadcasting. We begin this hour with sad news. 2 deaths to report. First, Jesse Jackson has died at the age of 84. The Democratic politician and civil rights leader ran for president twice in 1984 and in 1988. Let's take a listen to Cut 16 here from the 1984 Democrat National Convention.
My constituency is the desperate, the damned, the disinherited, the disrespected, and the despised. They are restless and seek relief. They have voted in record numbers. They have invested the faith, hope, and trust that they have in us. The Democratic Party must send them a signal that we care. I pledge my best not to let them down.
Jackson did accumulate quite a few votes and delegates in both of his runs for president. He was an outsized figure in populist, progressive politics for many years, although he did spend the last few years of his life pushing the anti-Semitic efforts to divest from companies that do business with Israel. Jesse Jackson is dead at the age of 84. And Hollywood has lost an icon. Robert Duvall was 95 years old. A very long list of key Oscar-worthy performances, from The Godfather to The Apostle to several westerns that captured the imagination. Here's Duvall after winning Best Actor honors at the 1984 Academy Awards. Cut 15.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited, very happy, very moved, very everything tonight to be up here, to be singled out from among all these very talented people. I sometimes come to the Academy Awards and watch them year after year, and I get caught up in the spectacle of it, in the event, in the very complex type of entertainment. And I guess I forget that what we're really here for is to single out who we think is the best for that given year. And if that's what I'm to be this year, then I appreciate it I accept it with an honor, and I'm very moved because of that.
Dolly Parton and Sylvester Stallone presented Duvall with the Oscar for Best Actor for his performance in Tender Mercies there at the 56th Academy Awards in 1984. Duvall was actually one of the rare conservatives in Hollywood, and by all accounts, a pretty good dude. Godspeed to Robert Duvall and best wishes to his family. Another round of trans violence, this time in Rhode Island, where a deranged transgender gunman who also sported Nazi tattoos shot 5 people, killing 2 in a suspected family dispute there at a Rhode Island high school hockey tournament. Robert Dorgan was 56 years old. He also went by the name Roberta Esposito. He is identified as the shooter, and he killed himself at the scene. The gunman killed his wife and shot 2 of his kids before turning the gun on himself. He shot his 3rd child, who is currently hospitalized, according to sources. Here's some reporting on all of this from WCVB-TV in Boston. They interviewed a woman who is another daughter of the shooter. Take a listen to Cut 14 here.
My father was the shooter.
What happened?
Shot my family. And he's dead now.
What was the reasoning? Was there a family argument?
He has mental health issues.
So yes, she goes on to describe those mental health issues a little bit more. She says that he had been struggling with mental health for quite some time. She said, quote, he was very sick.
I'm sure the press will move on quickly from this shooting because they never want to confront the truth about the details of these trans shooters. But can you imagine the media moving on from another shooting involving a white male with Nazi tattoos shooting up a hockey rink? Of course, they wouldn't. Interesting news out of corporate America today. Goldman Sachs plans to scrap DEI criteria for its board of directors. Race, sexual orientation, and other DEI factors will no longer be taken into account when the board's governance committee identifies potential new directors. Seems the pendulum continues to swing back in American culture, folks. More Epstein fallout. Billionaire Tom Pritzker, the cousin of Governor J.B. Pritzker, a Democrat planning to run for president, has stepped down as executive chairman of Hyatt Hotels after being named in the Epstein files. Pritzker says he deeply regrets his ties with Epstein and says he exercised terrible judgment. The Epstein files revealed that Pritzker maintained close contact with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's associate, for a decade after Epstein's solicitation charges. A lot of Democratic ties in the Epstein files, it turns out. Sad news out of Chatham County, Georgia. A Savannah school teacher is dead, killed by an illegal alien in a car crash. ICE agents were trying to pull over this illegal alien. He fled, and then tragedy struck. WJCL-TV has the report, Cut 18.
As for what led up to it, police say ICE officers initially attempted a traffic stop of 38-year-old Oscar Vasquez Lopez. The Department of Homeland Security says he was initially stopped, then sped away, running a red light and making an illegal U-turn, which caused the deadly collision. DHS releasing this photo and saying he was in the country illegally from Guatemala. Vasquez Lopez has been charged with reckless driving, driving without a valid license, vehicular homicide, and other offenses. ICE policy says in regards to a situation like this, ICE officials use reasonable and necessary force when someone resists arrest. ICE officers and agents prioritize safety, including the safety of the people that they arrest, and are highly trained in de-escalation. Vasquez Lopez is currently in custody in the hospital. Authorities say he did not suffer serious injuries in the crash.
Seems like this continues to happen in America. Illegal aliens on our roadways, killing American citizens, and yet Democrats continue to fight tooth and nail to keep as many of them here as possible in our country. This just into the Scott Jennings Show. The U.S. has sunk a few more narco boats. Joint Task Force Southern Spear conducted lethal kinetic strikes on 3 vessels operated by designated terrorist organizations yesterday, or last evening, I should say. Intelligence confirmed the vessels were transiting along known narco-trafficking routes and were engaged in narco-trafficking operations. 11 narco-terrorists were killed during these actions, 4 on the first vessel in the Eastern Pacific, 4 on the second vessel, also in the Eastern Pacific, and 3 on a third vessel that was in the Caribbean. No U.S. military forces were harmed. Speculation swirling in Washington, D.C. today over the future of Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito. Rumors are flying that he may be considering stepping down this year, which would give President Trump a 4th pick for the U.S. Supreme Court. Alito is 75 years old. The only older justice is Clarence Thomas, who is 77. So we will keep an eye on what happens with Justice Alito in the weeks ahead. Winter Olympics still going on in Italy. Quick check of the medal count. Norway leading the way with 30 total medals, including 13 golds. Italy has 24 total medals in second place. The United States is in third with 20 medals, including 6 gold, 9 silver, and 5 bronze. A quick word about aches and pains today. This word coming in from Tom in Texas. 85 years old, Tom is. Pain was keeping him from riding his bike and flying small aircraft as a flight instructor. But after taking Relief Factor, Tom says his lower back and hip pain are virtually gone, and even long-standing trigger finger issues have started to improve. Now, I have to tell you, the Jennings household has been gobbling up Relief Factor for some months now. I've tried it. My father is a strict adherent to the Relief Factor regimen. He's down in Florida now, playing golf every day, enjoying his life. Tells me he hasn't felt this good in years. It's keeping aches and pains away from everyday life. That's a good thing. And if aches and pains are holding you back from doing the things that you want to do, whether that's golfing or gardening or working or playing with your grandkids, try out Relief Factor. I think you might like it. They have a thing called the 3-week quick start. See how it works for you. Here's how you do it. Call 1-800-4RELIEF or visit ReliefFactor.com. 1-800-4RELIEF or visit ReliefFactor.com. When we come back, a little reporting on Governor Wes Moore of Maryland, some more biographical fibbing. We'll take a look at it right here on the Scott Jennings Show on Salem. Stay with us.
Ready for more common sense? Here's CNN's senior political commentator, New York Times best-selling author, and America's favorite political pundit, Scott Jennings.
Tuesday, February 17th, live from Naples, Florida today. The world travels of Scott Jennings continues. Just can't sit still, can we? We cannot. But if you're going to move around, moving towards Florida in the winter is the way to do it here in beautiful Naples, Florida today. Looking forward tonight, actually, to a speech to my friends at the James Madison Institute. Great organization out of Florida here. Let's talk a little bit about the 2028 Democratic field for president, shall we? We talked somewhat about Andy Beshear last week. He sort of launched his campaign basically last week. Another person who's getting a little bit of publicity this week is another governor, this one of Maryland. His name is Wes Moore. Moore is a rising figure in the Democratic Party, widely discussed as a potential contender, although he has vacillated on whether he intends to run. A lot of people consider him to be a probable or possible candidate. He is facing, unfortunately for him, increased scrutiny over several key claims in his personal biography. There is some recent reporting in the Washington Free Beacon. A reporter named Andrew Kerr has raised some serious questions about Moore's long-standing public narrative, both in terms of his academic credentials and his own family history. Now, we can go over this, and you might ask, well, Scott, Joe Biden fabricated 90% of his background, and he became president. Does it really matter all that much? Well, of course it matters. We don't know these guys. I mean, yes, they're elected at the state level, but there ought to be some kind of an investigation about what they say about themselves and whether it's true or not. Let's look at it here. Let's look at the academic piece first. So Moore went to Oxford, and he's always made some claims about his time at Oxford. They're a little bit suspect. He has described his Oxford studies as a cornerstone of his expertise. And he has characterized himself as the foremost expert on radical Islam because of work that he did there. However, investigative reporting shows that aspects of this claim are at odds with the Oxford's records. According to archival information and university confirmation, the thesis Moore cites as the basis for that expertise cannot be located in Oxford's library. The university says he never submitted a final thesis there. On top of that, and maybe more interestingly, there's the issue of his family history and a story about his great-grandfather. Moore repeatedly tells a story about, it's a powerful and dramatic narrative, frankly, that his great-grandfather, a black minister in South Carolina in the 1920s, was run out of the country, out of the whole country, by the Ku Klux Klan, and that this episode shaped Moore's family trajectory and his own views on justice and patriotism. He has shared this story in interviews with national media. He talks about it in speeches. It's a big part of the broader arc of his life story. However, the Free Beacon has looked at the historical records, and they've talked to researchers, and it paints a different picture than the one Moore has been telling. Church archives and newspaper accounts at the time indicate that Moore's great-grandfather, whose name was Reverend Josiah Johnson Thomas, did leave South Carolina, but not in the middle of the night, not in a secret flight from violence, but as part of a very public and orderly church transfer to his native Jamaica in December 1924. There's no mention in the records or newspaper accounts of threats from Klan intimidation or any covert escape under the cover of darkness. It's just that he was taking a different job that had opened up in a different place. Moore was asked about this by Nora O'Donnell from CBS News. Here's how he responded, cut 19.
I think about this in this frame. If there's a couple things that the people of this state know about me, it's that I'm a person of honor and integrity. I take that very seriously. I was raised right by my family, and I was trained right by the Army. And so when I'm watching this game of politics, and frankly, this is what I think people hate about politics so much. It's this politics of personal destruction, where as a person who has nothing, neither to be ashamed of or nothing to exaggerate about my life, that this is the thing that conservative right-wing blogs want to attack, particularly when it's something that Oxford University has verified already. This is the thing I think people hate about politics.
I don't know. I didn't hear much of an explanation there from Wes Moore. Probably going to get asked again. We'll keep an eye on this story and maybe talk to Andrew Kerr about it in the very near future. When we come back, Congressman Randy Fine of Florida is here. People want him to resign. We'll get his response to that when we come back. It's Scott Jennings on Salem. You know something? Universities are kind of a bad deal. 6 figures of debt for a bachelor's degree that signals less every year. 4 years spent navigating ideological rules instead of learning how to think. Grades inflated, standards lowered, dissent punished. We call it higher education, but it's mostly expensive daycare with a credential attached. The University of Austin, also known as UATX, is different, however. Admissions at UATX are based on test scores alone. No essays, no resumes. Nobody cares who your parents know. If you're smart enough, you're in. UATX students turned down UChicago and fled Barnard to complete a demanding great books core, including Aristotle, Shakespeare, de Tocqueville, alongside real math, science, economics, and AI. Classes are small, professors actually know your name, grades aren't padded, excellence is measured and rewarded. From day one, students work directly with top founders, investors, and institutions, building companies, doing serious research, and landing real internships. And here's the part that changes everything. There is no tuition. Thanks to private donors, every UATX student graduates debt-free. You're free to take risks, free to start companies, and free to build a life instead of paying off loans. If you want an empty credential, look elsewhere. If you want a serious education that actually prepares you to lead, apply to the University of Austin. Visit uaustin.org. That's uaustin.org.
Saving Western civilization, one busted leftist narrative at a time. It's the Scott Jennings Show.
It is Tuesday, February 17th. Common sense for the American people. Scott Jennings is here on Salem. Interesting story brewing in national politics. Let me see if I can set it up a little bit. There is this prominent Palestinian Muslim activist in New York City named Nardine Kizwani. She is a co-founder of a group called Within Our Lifetimes. And she put out a statement, a social media post saying, and I'm going to quote it, "Finally, New York City is coming to Islam. Dogs definitely have a place in society, just not as indoor pets. Like we've said all along, they are unclean." So that got the conversation rolling. And my next guest said this in response: if they force us to choose, the choice between dogs and Muslims is not a difficult one. And that has set off a round of back and forth in the national political media. My next guest is Congressman Randy Fine, representing Florida's 6th Congressional District. The Hebrew Hammer is here. Randy, thanks for coming back on the Scott Jennings Show. You seem to be at the center of a national conversation right now. There's a lot of people who are condemning your statement, and they want you to resign from office. I'll just start here. What say you to those people?
Well, I hate to disappoint, and thanks for having me, Scott. I'm not going anywhere. What's remarkable is that their outrage isn't that we are supposed to kill our dogs because Muslim immigrants say they are not halal. I don't want us to have a choice. Anyone who wants to come to America can practice their own religion however they want, in peace and in privacy. But when you attempt to force your values on me, that's where I am going to make a choice. And what's extraordinary is all of the Democrats that have attacked me, not a single one has said they respect the American's right to own a dog. Not only are we supposed to let all these people in, we're supposed to smile and submit while they redefine what it means to be in America, and I'm not going to put up with it.
Yeah, you've been attacked by all sorts of prominent Democrats and media people out there. They seem to be keying in on your comments and on your social media posts. Everybody from Gavin Newsom to Jake Tapper from CNN to quite a few others. Have you been surprised at the volume and level of attacks that you're facing from the American left?
No, yes and no. No, because this is how they win. They silence us by calling us names and demanding we submit. And frankly, most of my colleagues are too nice. They just want to get along like we're all at a country club, and why do we have to argue? And what I've learned in my time in Washington is Democrats are ruthlessly effective in using their power and on beating us to shut up. And they are learning I won't shut up. That's why I got my nickname, and they don't know what to do about it. What does surprise me is the Democrats have chosen to be on the side of puppy killing. I mean, this is a 90-10 issue. We want people to be able to have dogs. Democrats are saying, no, no, no. If that upsets Muslim immigrants, everyone has to give up their dogs. So this is a loser for them politically, but, I guess so were men's playing women's sports, and that didn't stop them. That surprises me a little bit.
So something I'm trying to understand about Nurdeen Kiswani's statement was this just a trial balloon being floated up by one person, or is this a broadly held political view in New York and in other places that we should be moving towards banning dogs as indoor pets? What's your view? I mean, is this being talked about more than maybe we might realize?
This is a widely held view in Islam that dogs are not haram. In fact, in Judea and Samaria that were controlled by Muslims in Israel a few years ago, they paid $5 to every Palestinian who would go and kill a dog because they wanted to get rid of them. Muslims, I'm not criticizing their religion, but their religion says that dogs are not good things to have as pets. So she is not unique in this view. I think what she is a little bit unique in is she's saying the quiet part out loud. And there are parts in Europe where they have said, we don't want dogs here because they are haram. You do not have to look hard to find these videos. The question we have as a country is, are we going to change who we are as Americans because these people want to come here? The rule always was, you come to America, you assimilate into our culture. We don't change to become yours. And that seems to be what has changed on the left. They expect us to give up our dogs because other people don't like them.
Congressman Randy Fine of Florida is our guest this hour. There's some other things going on in New York City in this general conversation, Congressman, that I want to get your response to. In fact, let's play cut number 10. The Islamic call to prayer is being blasted around New York City at 5 o'clock in the morning. Let's hear this.
Here is Atlantic. We are hearing Azan. Come here.
So this audio is from the streets of New York City, 5 o'clock in the morning. Muslim call to prayer. Congressman Fine, you ever think you'd hear something like that in the United States of America?
No, I certainly did not, and we need to cut it out because it's not a call to prayer. It is a call to submit before Allah. That is what it is. Look, fact of the matter is if Muslims want to pray in their mosques, more power to them. They can set their alarm just like the rest of us do. They do not need to wake us up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And in Minneapolis, it's been as early as 3:30 in the morning to pipe this nonsense. We live in the United States of America. There are 57 Sharia-compliant countries in the world. I'm going to make sure we do not become number 58.
Yeah, this video is making the rounds on social media, causing quite a bit of outrage right now. Also, let's talk about the NBA. Portland Trailblazers basketball player Deni Avdija made history as the first Israeli to play in the NBA All-Star Game this weekend. For this honor, he was greeted by courtside attendee Spike Lee, who showed up at the game covered in Palestinian flags and colors, taunting him. What's your reaction to that, Randy?
Well, he also showed up with red arrows, which were used to show targets that Palestinians wanted to kill. I mean, the whole thing is repugnant. And keep in mind, he's just a basketball player who happens to be Jewish and happens to be from Israel. I thought we're not supposed to hold people accountable because of the actions of others. And for him to choose to make this message in this way, it shows that he's an anti-Semite. It shows that he's anti-Israel. And frankly, it just shows that he's an idiot.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to me. If you were to switch up the costumery here and put a different kind of person in different kind of costume courtside at the NBA All-Star Game, you wonder if that person would be. And of course, I watched some of the broadcasts, and of course, they were showing Spike Lee prominently on there, as he was obviously taunting this Israeli All-Star. Pretty poor showing by the NBA. Let's switch gears and talk a little Washington news. Congressman, the House passed the Save America Act last week. You voted for it. What's your view? Do you think it will come out of the Senate or not?
Well, I hope so. Look, the good news is 50 senators have now publicly stated that they support the bill. And with J.D. Vance, that gives us a majority. Now, Democrats have said they will filibuster it, and which normally would require 60 votes. Why will they filibuster it? Because they need illegal immigrants to vote in order for them to win. They can't win elections anymore with just Americans. So the question becomes, will the Senate move to what we all remember from Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, the talking filibuster, where Democrats can stand up and talk until they can't talk anymore, but when that's over, then we get to vote. And that will take some time. It will take a week, 2, 3, for all the Democrats to justify why something 80% of Americans want, voter ID, is a bad idea. But at the end of that, we will get a vote. And so we all need to be calling on the Senate to have the talking filibuster, make Democrats stand up and justify why people shouldn't have to show a driver's license if they want to go and vote.
I've been somewhat flummoxed, surprised even at some of the Democratic arguments against the Save America Act, principally that if you are black, if you are rural, if you are a married woman, they made a list of all the people that they consider to be too dumb, I guess, to figure out how to vote if this bill passes. Of course, all those groups overwhelmingly support voter ID. What's your reaction to the argument vector that Democrats have used against this? I think it's blowing up in their face, personally.
Well, look, I think we have to accept that we live in an incredibly racist world. Last week, I flew home from Washington. I had to do the racist act of showing my ID to get on the plane. And then I had to do the racist act of showing my ID to pick up my rental car. And when I needed to pick up my prescription, I apparently had to do the racist act of showing my ID to get my prescription. They don't have an argument. They don't have one. So they make up this crazy gibberish nonsense to try to stop it. It is insane to say that women and minorities somehow are less capable of getting a driver's license than a white man. It's insulting to them, and they should be angry about it because, of course, they're not any less capable of getting these things. But Democrats don't have an argument, and so they're trying to come up with poppycock to try to talk people off of it. Everyone, Republicans, independents, Democrats, black, white, Hispanic, all groups, men and women, everyone thinks you should show a photo ID in order to vote. It's just common sense, and we need to get it done.
Perhaps somewhat related, the government partially shut down a few days ago over DHS funding. Democrats want to tie the hands of ICE in terms of enforcing immigration law. Republicans have balked at this, although ICE is still funded for the next couple of years. They've just succeeded in shutting down other parts of the Department of Homeland Security. When do you think an agreement will be reached? Anytime soon, or are we in for a protracted partial government shutdown here?
I wish I could tell you. I don't know. I mean, I think the president's supposed to give his State of the Union next Tuesday. They may want to keep the government shut down for some sort of statement about that, or maybe to get him to postpone it. He said he won't. I don't know. But what Americans need to understand is this. For the third, we swear an oath to fight for Americans when we get elected to Congress. And for the third time in 6 months, Democrats have shut down the government, not because they want things for Americans, but because they want things for illegal immigrants. First, it was free health care for illegal immigrants. Now it's stopping the deportation of illegal immigrants. There are 1.6 million illegal immigrants who have fully gone through our judicial process, have been told to leave, and refuse to do so. 800,000 of them are criminals beyond that. And they want us to stop that. And the reason the issues are related is they want these people in the country and they want them to vote. So we can't give any quarter. We've got to be sending home every single illegal immigrant without exception.
That's Congressman Randy Fine of Florida. He is the best friend to man's best friend, taking care of protecting our dogs. And the big news today, telling the people who want him to resign to pound sand. Congressman, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
All right, Randy Fine of Florida. When we come back, Mary Miller of Illinois is here. It's common sense for the American people. I'm Scott Jennings. Don't miss a thing. Stay with us.
Conversations and stories you simply won't hear from the mainstream media. It's the Scott Jennings Show.
Tuesday, February 17th. Scott Jennings here. Common sense for the American people. Congresswoman Mary Miller of Illinois joins me in just a moment. We're going to continue to talk about the Save America Act. I do want to give you a quick word from our friends at Done with Debt. If you are stressed about getting out of debt, my strongest recommendation is that you call up our buddies at Done with Debt. They are one of the best we've ever seen at navigating debt relief. Last year was a record year for Done with Debt. They did over $102 million in debt for our listeners and for other people. They know how to work the system. They follow the rules. They follow the undulations in the markets here. They will work with you through the entire debt relief process so that you keep more of your paycheck every month. Imagine waking up without that weight on your shoulders and doing it without taking out another loan or filing for bankruptcy. That would feel pretty good, I imagine. Don't wait for the lenders, by the way, to tighten up their policies. Visit donewithdebt.com. Do it now. Talk with a debt specialist. It is free to talk. Takes but a few minutes. Our buddies are donewithdebt.com. They are here to help you. Joining us on the Scott Jennings Show, Mary Miller, Congresswoman, 15th District of Illinois. Mary, welcome back to the show. Let's talk about the Save America Act. The Democrats have gone crazy with these arguments, Congresswoman Miller, specifically targeting married women, saying that somehow when you get married, you drop 100 IQ points and you can't figure out how to vote. What do you make of these crazy arguments?
It's ridiculous. They're grasping at straws, but they continue to try to divide Americans into groups like black, white, male, female to push their agenda. But it's a ridiculous idea, and women are getting IDs all the time. I don't know any woman that doesn't have an ID. So, and if there is a problem, they can always fill out a provisional ballot. There's a remedy for it if someone gets to the polls and has some kind of problem.
Yeah, you've got kind of a rural district, too. That's the other thing I've been hit with on CNN a couple of times. You know, Scott, rural people, you know, they don't know how to get the documents it takes to figure out how to vote, which, of course, is insulting to me. I am a rural person. I know how to vote. People keep asking me, Scott, do you have your birth certificate? Yes, of course I do. But you know what? Even if I didn't, I could call up the Kentucky Office of Vital Statistics and get one for $10. I mean, they're making these things sound like they're huge obstacles when they're really not, Congresswoman.
Super insulting. Cackling Kamala was the first one that came up with that about the rural people not being able to get IDs. Like, we're so stupid. But I just want to tell the listeners that I believe funding DHS and passing election integrity reform is tied together. The Democrats facilitated the invasion at the border, and they want illegals to vote for them because American people are not buying their bad ideas anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting watching the Democratic Party completely and totally absorb illegal aliens as the principal constituency of their party. I mean, you look how hard they fight on this issue. You look how hard they fight, say, when people like Kilmer Abrego Garcia come along. You look how hard they're willing to fight for a constituency that is not made up of American citizens. We have one of our two major political parties that is fully dedicated to fighting for a group of people who are not citizens of the United States of America. Did you ever think you'd see it here?
No, 90% of Americans support election integrity, voter ID, proof of citizenship. But I want to tell the people it is essential. We are in a war for the survival of this country. You have to get out and vote in the midterms. Get razzed up about it. Get your neighbors, the people at your church, your family members, get them to the polls to vote. It is so important.
That's Congresswoman Mary Miller of Illinois. Thank you for coming back on the show today. Appreciate your time. We'll see how the government funding situation with DHS shakes out in the days and weeks ahead. We look forward to having you back. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
As we wrap up the first hour of the Scott Jennings Show, I do want to remind you that the cruise is still laying out there. November of this year. Me, Mike Gallagher, a whole bunch of people who care about the future of this country. We're going to cruise through the Gulf of America. It's the Gulf of America cruise, and we're going to honor the 250th anniversary of our nation while we do it. We'd love to see you there. Personal invitation from me right here. Text the word cruise to 94878 or visit scottjenningsshow.com and click the Gulf of America cruise banner. Don't miss it. Gallagher, Jennings, Gulf of America, November. We need to see you there. Another hour's coming up. It's Scott on Salem. Stay with us.
The voice of free speech. The truth delivered. Common sense for the American people. Welcome to the Scott Jennings Show.
It is Tuesday, February 17th. Common sense for the American people. Scott Jennings broadcasting here on the Salem Radio and Television Network. We thank you sincerely for joining us. Hour number 2 of the show here. Quick check of the headlines. The Pima County Sheriff, this is just in, by the way, says that there was not a match in the FBI database for DNA found on any of the glove or material found inside Nancy Guthrie's house. So no matches in the FBI CODIS system. Still no real new forward progress in the search for Nancy Guthrie out there in Arizona. U.S.-Iran talks. Officials from the United States and Iran met for 3 hours on Tuesday about the nuclear program in Iran. The Iranian foreign minister offered a rather vague but positive assessment of the talks, I suppose. U.S. officials didn't have much of a comment on the meeting. It's not clear when the two countries will meet again. This, of course, all comes as the United States has sent a massive amount of military buildup to the Middle East. Reports are today that Assistant Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Tricia McLaughlin, who is a friend of this show and has appeared on our show, is going to step down from her work by next week. The reporting is that Tricia was going to step down in December, but then the activities in Minneapolis convinced her to stay on for a few extra weeks. But Tricia McLaughlin will be moving on from her duties at the Department of Homeland Security. She's a great talent from the state of Ohio, and we are excited to see what Tricia does next. You're listening to Scott Jennings Show, Common Sense for the American People here on Salem. You know what we got to talk about? This happened over the weekend, and I talked a little bit about it on CNN last night with Dana Bash, but this whole split screen that happened in Munich at the Munich Security Conference, the split screen of Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, giving the speech of a lifetime, a tour de force in what it looks like to be a responsible adult human on the world stage, standing up for Western values, standing up for Western civilization, versus the absolute clown show that was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Gretchen Whitmer, and Gavin Newsom. You had the best of what the Republican Party has to offer in terms of leadership on the international stage in Rubio, and then you had the Three Stooges from the Democratic Party. We have, basically in this country, we have one political party that is an adult and one political party that is a child that doesn't understand how the world works, and a child that effectively just lurches from one tantrum to another. Let's listen to a little bit of this. Let's listen to Marco Rubio in Munich. And by the way, I can't play the whole thing because it was a 20-minute speech. If you have time, go listen to Marco. He was nothing short of brilliant. But let's listen to cut 4. Here's Marco Rubio speaking in Munich.
And this is why we do not want our allies to be weak, because that makes us weaker. We want allies who can defend themselves so that no adversary will ever be tempted to test our collective strength. This is why we do not want our allies to be shackled by guilt and shame. We want allies who are proud of their culture and of their heritage, who understand that we are heirs to the same great and noble civilization, and who together with us are willing and able to defend it. And this is why we do not want allies to rationalize the broken status quo rather than reckon with what is necessary to fix it. For we in America have no interest in being polite and orderly caretakers of the West's managed decline.
I mean, Rubio, line after line after line, made clear that the United States is going to defend Western civilization. And he asked the Europeans, we want you to be our partners. We want to do this in cooperation with you because we have this amazing shared civilization, this amazing shared history. So for all the attacks on Trump and his people about isolationism and, making the rest of the world angry or whatever, here you have the Secretary of State begging the Europeans, don't let your civilization, don't let your culture be overrun by people who do not share our Western values. So here you, and by the way, gets a standing ovation. Rubio gets a standing ovation from the Europeans. So that's a good thing. So then you put the split screen here. The main attraction for the Democrats was supposed to be Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She goes over there. She wants to run for president. She wants to burnish her foreign policy credentials. She wants to show that, yes, I'm capable of handling myself in a setting where you would expect a president or at least a presidential candidate to be able to operate. She gets asked some basic questions about, well, hey, what would the United States do if China were to attack Taiwan? This is a basic, expected question. It is one of the most oft-asked questions of presidential candidates. People in Washington talk about it. If you are a member of Congress, you no doubt have interacted with this subject matter, or at least you should have. But let's see what AOC did in response to this. Cut number 1.
Would and should the U.S. actually commit U.S. troops to defend Taiwan if China were to move?
I think that this is such a, I think that this is this is, of course, a very longstanding policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point, and we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and our global positions to avoid any such confrontation and for that question to even arise.
Completely and totally lost. It's a basic foreign policy question. It's really a yes or no question. Would you commit troops to defend Taiwan? You could say no. You could say yes. What you can't do is what she did if you want to be taken seriously. But that's sort of what passes for legitimate foreign policy thought, I guess, on the American left right now. Not to be outdone, Gretchen Whitmer was also over there, one of these governors that everybody wants to have run for president. She couldn't answer a basic question about Ukraine. Here's cut number 2.
On Ukraine, what does victory look like?
Ambassador? No, please. I'd love to hear your answer.
It is. The two that I am on the panel with are much more steeped in foreign policy than a governor is. But I do think that Ukraine's independence, keeping their land mass, and having the support of all the allies, I think is the goal from my vantage point. Go ahead, Ambassador. Do a better job.
Gretchen Whitmer, one of these governors. I hear Democrats all the time saying, oh, we should nominate a governor. Gretchen Whitmer's out here saying she knows less about foreign policy than AOC, which is exactly nothing. So it could not have been a worse showing. Honestly, between this Munich security conference and between Gavin Newsom and his sort of embarrassment with the knee pad thing in Davos, Democrats have come off on the international stage lately as just completely and totally unserious people. I don't know. J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, if they wind up teaming up, they're going to have like 500 IQ points on top of whatever Democrats come out of this primary. It just seems like a race to the intellectual bottom over there on the left right now. Anyway, let's get a quick word in here from Relief Factor. And this story, by the way, comes from Keith in Washington. Very active guy, Keith. College athlete, martial arts instructor, teaching multiple classes a day. Keith's body was wearing down, had neck pain, he had knee pain, and it was really impacting his ability to do his training and earn his black belt. So he tries that Relief Factor, and what happens? Knee pain gone, neck pain out significantly. He gets his black belt. He's able to keep training. It's working for people across the country. I'm getting all these letters, I get all these stories, and it's my duty to report them to you. If you would like to find out if Relief Factor can work for you the way it has for Keith and so many other people, my advice, try the 3-week quick start. All you got to do is call 1-800-4RELIEF or visit ReliefFactor.com. Let's see if we can get you out of pain. When we come back, the Attorney General of Alabama is here. We'll talk to him next. It's Scott Jennings on Salem.
He's the author of the best-selling book, A Revolution of Common Sense. Here's Scott Jennings.
Tuesday, February 17th, Common Sense for the American People. Scott Jennings is here on Salem. My next guest is the Attorney General of the great state of Alabama. Steve Marshall is here. General Marshall, welcome into the show.
Good to be with you, Scott. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for logging in today. I wanted to, and I should also add, candidate for the United States Senate. We'll talk about that in a moment. I wanted to have you in because obviously we've been covering in the news a lot lately, places such as Minnesota and a few other places where there is resistance to cooperation with immigration enforcement. You, on the other hand, recently expanded ICE cooperation in the state of Alabama following a tragic kidnapping. I was hoping you might explain to us what happened and why you decided on this course of action, and really, what's it look like when you have people working together as opposed to places like Minnesota where you have people working at cross purposes?
Yeah, no doubt. Daylight and dark when you compare, particularly in Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia. The work that we're doing, ICE collaboratively, are making our communities safer. And we saw very specific incident in Mobile where a illegal immigrant who had a significant criminal history out of El Salvador is now charged with the abduction of 3 individuals who to this date have still not been found, and we don't know if they're alive. No reason for that individual to be in this country, and clearly as somebody with significant criminal history is not somebody that we want investing in our communities. And so not only are we proud of the work that we saw both ICE, FBI, and local law enforcement do to be able to apprehend this individual, but again, for me, it was a call to the work that we do with ICE and our federal partners across our state that's so valuable. And we're going to enhance that here. We believe and support the mission that ICE has, think that they are doing remarkable work with the resources that they have. But Scott, when I think about I've been a prosecutor for now almost 30 years. We had an individual in jail, had an ICE detainer. We followed the law. We turned that individual over to ICE and allowed federal authorities then to take action. We've seen that process work for years and have had no objection from Democrats to how that worked. And in fact, you saw it work very effectively during Obama's administration. But now suddenly Tim Walz and others find problems with that. That's simply virtue signaling to their constituency that's not helping public safety. Well, we know in Alabama that this system works, and we're going to continue to support it and help the efforts of ICE in being able to keep our communities safer.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking to me, honestly, to see the Democratic Party absorb illegal immigration and illegal immigrant populations as really the number one constituency of the party. They spend more energy on this than anything else. In Alabama, even at the local level where you still have some Democrats left, what do you hear from people on the ground? I assume this is an 80-20 or maybe even a 90-10 issue. I assume people don't want to keep illegal aliens in Alabama at all costs, do they?
No, and I think we appreciate and understand the rule of law and how that applies not only on what we do at the local level, but also at the national level as well. But I mean, Scott, we shouldn't be surprised at the rhetoric of the left. I mean, they don't even want to adopt the SAVE Act, right? Where we have provisions that say if you're here illegally, you shouldn't be able to vote. SAVE Act wants to make sure that that, in fact, is secured and that we have the ability to verify and validate. You know, the narrative that's around illegal immigration is really just the effort of the left to either maintain power or find some vehicle to control power in the future. In Alabama, we're not going to allow that to happen, and we're going to make sure that we follow the law.
All right, you're running for the United States Senate to replace Tommy Tuberville, who is running for governor. Some of the polls put you at the top of the pack. Tell us about your campaign, why you decided to get into this race. What are you hearing from voters out there? What are the top issues people are talking to you about?
Yeah, we're proud to lead, but we got to finish this, and that'll occur on May the 19th. You know, I have been in public service now as a local district attorney and now as the attorney general for the last 9 years. And what the people of Alabama have seen is that we take on the tough issues and we ultimately deliver. And that's from the fight that we had around opioids and the money that we delivered to treatment services across our state, to the many pushes back against the Biden administration defending Alabama's sovereignty, and the work that we've done as this old prosecutor in me to be able to keep communities safer. And so want to take that same mission to the United States Senate. And I think what people in Alabama see is that Washington's broken. They want a conservative warrior that's ultimately able to make a difference. And they've seen that we've not just talked the talk, but we've been able to deliver in ways that matter to families in our state. The polls reflect that we've done that already. And I think they're looking for somebody like me to be able to deliver results to the people of our state.
That voice you're hearing today, Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall, leading the way on immigration enforcement in Alabama, and also a leading contender for United States Senate in that open race. And the primary comes up in May. Steve Marshall, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thank you, Scott.
All right, when we come back, a sitting United States Senator is here. Bernie Moreno from Ohio, friend of the show, is back. We'll talk to him about the Save America Act and other issues when we come back. It's Scott Jennings on Salem. Stay with us.
The very definition of never back down. Here's Scott Jennings.
Tuesday, February 17th, Common Sense for the American People. Scott Jennings is here on Salem. Really excited for my next conversation. One of the bright rising stars of the conservative movement, United States Senator Bernie Moreno of the state of Ohio, joins us. Senator Moreno, thanks for being here and coming back to the show. I've got to start, however, with a clip of you. Last week, you had Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of Minnesota, in one of these hearings, and it was wild, absolute fire. Let's listen to this, and we'll get your reaction to how all that went down. Bernie Moreno takes on Keith Ellison, cut number 9.
To the country illegally, or you overstay a visa, should you be deported?
My simple answer is, sir, it depends.
Okay, so if somebody breaks into your home, should they be arrested for breaking and entering, or does it depend?
It's an entirely different scenario.
How's that?
Because immigration is essentially a civil, and the breaking into my home is a criminal matter.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So if there's laws that should be enforced, so we shouldn't enforce civil violations?
We absolutely should enforce them.
But you just said that it's a civil matter, so it's different. So if somebody
you enforce civil matters.
So if somebody commits a civil infraction, it shouldn't be enforced?
It should be.
Okay, so they should be deported.
No, they should have due process that is associated with their petition. So
again,
for example,
so the act of entering the country illegally, you think we should say, well, did you really do it or not do it? It's pretty obvious that they did, right?
Well, I mean, it would depend on the facts of the situation, and then they might say...
I just gave you the facts.
Senator Moreno, when you look back on that hearing, do you ever ask yourself, why can't Democrats just answer a simple question? I mean, should we deport people who are in the country illegally? Well, it depends. Can men get pregnant? Well, it depends. You know, it doesn't... Every question is an it depends with Democrats. What's going on with these Democrats, Bernie? Unbelievable.
Well, what's unbelievable is that guy is the chief law enforcement officer of the state of Minnesota. And by the way, it is actually a criminal offense to enter this country illegally. It's a civil offense to overstay your visa. I wanted to get there with him, but, you know, this guy, at the end of the day, Scott, what he believes is that we should have open borders, that it's America's responsibility to take care of the entire world. And you know what? If working Americans have to suffer as a result of lower wages and higher taxes to support illegal migrants, as long as it keeps them in power as they want. They just can't say that out loud. Instead, what they talk about is tactics. Oh, we don't like the tactics of ICE. That's just blatantly false. They don't like the fact that ICE is deporting the millions of people that they let into this country illegally during the Biden administration. They worked really hard, Scott. They get these tens of millions of people here illegally. They're really pissed off that we're now deporting them. That's the actual issue.
And when you hear Ellison and other Democrats espouse these views, understand these are not outlier views. These are not fringe radical views. This is the mainstream Democratic viewpoint. There really is no, I guess maybe Fetterman, your colleague John Fetterman of Pennsylvania. Other than that, there really isn't a Democrat in this country right now who is doing anything other than doing exactly what Ellison was doing right there, obfuscating, lying, talking around the issues. It's incredible how far left the Democratic Party has moved on this from just even, say, Obama's time in office when they deported millions.
Well, absolutely, because at the end of the day, if they actually said what they believe, Americans reject them soundly, because no normal American thinks that we should have an open border. Most normal Americans think we should be a sovereign country. These are basic facts. And by the way, most legal immigrants like myself believe that you should follow the process, you should follow the rules, and that we should stop rewarding people who broke the rules. These are just common sense. These are not Republican ideas. This is just normal American thoughts. They can't say that, so instead they lie, they pivot, they obfuscate. As you know, because you have to deal with this as well on your end, this is what they're good at.
Let's connect this to something going on in the Senate, and that is the partial government shutdown related to funding for the Department of Homeland Security. Once again, Democrats have voted to shut down, this time, part of our federal government. They're mad about ICE enforcing existing immigration law in this country. What do you think is going to happen next? By the way, it's crazy. ICE is already funded. So all they're really doing here is shutting down things that have to do with, say, TSA, the Coast Guard, other parts of DHS. They're not really having any impact on ICE, but yet they've done it nonetheless. Where are we headed on the shutdown on DHS?
Well, sadly, I don't think we're going to make much progress, because this is purely political theater. So you can't negotiate through political theater. Look, at the end of the day, you just said it. ICE and Border Patrol is fully funded through 2029. We did that in the Working Families Tax Cut bill last summer. So what they've actually shut down, Americans should know, is FEMA. They shut down the Coast Guard. They've shut down the Cybersecurity Agency. They've shut down Secret Service, and they've shut down TSA. And in fact, these Democrats walked right by those TSA agents that they themselves just took their paycheck away when they got on an airplane at taxpayer expense to go to Munich to badmouth America and be really bad at geography in the case of AOC. That's exactly what's going on. So how do we get to a resolution? I really don't know because it's in their court to decide. But here's the ultimate irony, Scott, and you know this. The continuing resolution that they passed for 2 weeks was their idea for 2 weeks. It wasn't ours. It actually funded ICE and Border Patrol at a higher level than what we wanted to fund it in the appropriations bill. And our bill included body cameras, which they're demanding. Well, if they had passed our appropriations bill, they would have gotten the body cameras. It asked for more training. If they had passed our appropriation bill, there'd be more training. So these are just, it's total irony. It's sick irony. They're trying to placate the Mandami wing of their base because they're all deathly afraid at the end of the day of some lunatic primary opponent. And that's who runs the Democrat Party today. It's not run like the Democrat Party when you and I were kids. It's a totally different party.
Yeah, a lot of the things they're asking for in so-called reforms of ICE would have the impact of really tying the hands of immigration enforcement here. I mean, they want to grind illegal immigration, deportations, and they want to grind immigration enforcement in general to a halt. So is it your belief that the Republicans are going to be able to stay unified here on this? Because I think giving an inch on this would send a terrible signal. I mean, it's amazing. All the administration is doing is enforcing immigration law that has been on the books for years.
We're not going to refuse to honor our laws. This is what the Republican Party is centered on. We're the party of law and order. They're the party of lawlessness. At the end of the day, it's illegal to enter this country without proper means. It's illegal to overstay your visa. The people who did that need to be deported, period. Now, how we get there and who we get there first and versus second and third, we can have that conversation. But here's what we're not going to do. We're not going to move to judicial warrants instead of administrative warrants because that would take us 1,000,000 years to deport the people that came into this country. It's totally abject insanity. And by the way, Obama didn't have to do that. Clinton didn't have to do that. Here's what we're also not going to do. We're not going to have the agents put their lives at risk by being doxxed. So if they want the agents not to have masks, by the way, the agents don't want to have masks. If you remember, Scott, the Democrats were the ones that loved masks. Remember that 4 years ago? They were all for masks before they were against masks. So we'll take masks off Border Patrol agents and ICE agents if we make it a federal crime with extreme penalties for doxing federal agents and putting their lives at risk, including elected leaders. In that same hearing, Scott, I had 79 sitting members of the House and the Senate that have called ICE Gestapo, secret police, thugs. This is people whose job it is to enforce our laws. By the way, from the body who created said laws. So think about how insane that is. So if they want to make it a federal crime where if a politician doxes an ICE agent who didn't have a mask on, who was identified, I'm all for taking off the mask, and I think the agents would agree with that. But until that happens, I'm all for making certain that these guys are safe. These are heroes that are doing God's work every day to keep our communities safe. You know what we should say? Thank you very much. That's what we should be saying to these agents.
So let's connect this to the other big talk of the Senate right now, and that is the Save America Act. It was recently announced that we now have 50 co-sponsors for the Save America Act. And, you know, we're only a couple away from getting everybody in the Senate Republican Conference on this. What's the future, in your opinion? Will the Save America Act be brought to the floor, and will it pass the U.S. Senate?
Well, let's make certain your listeners understand what we're talking about. It's something that is so basic, it's almost ridiculous. We're asking people when they register to vote for the very first time that they prove they're a U.S. citizen. That's it. All they have to do is say, hey, look, I want to register to vote in this country, and I prove that you're eligible by proving citizenship. That bar is on the ground. That is a low, low bar. The second thing is when you actually vote later, after you've registered, you have to show that you are who you say you are, like you do at the airport, like what you do at the bank. I mean, you show your ID constantly, right? You don't leave your house without your wallet because it has your driver's license. This is not a low lift. What's amazing to me is they frame this as a racist conversation. As somebody who's Hispanic, I find it racist that they think I'm so incompetent that I'm incapable of getting a driver's license. Like something about my heritage makes me not be able to find the Department of Motor Vehicles, makes it not capable because I was Latin to be able to go find my birth certificate. And thank you, white savior, for helping me get through my incompetence. I mean, you talk about racism. That is the racism, that inherent low expectations, that because of your immutable characteristics, you're less of a human than they are. It is grotesque. So look, every Democrat, except for, say, Fetterman, will vote against having a voter ID when you go vote and proving that you're a U.S. citizen. Why? It goes right back to the beginning of the conversation, Scott. They brought tens of millions of people in this country because they know Americans are no longer with them, so they have to import voters from the third world to keep them in power. That's ultimately what this is about.
Do you think we're going to see changes to the filibuster here in order to do this? Obviously, Democrats are going to filibuster. They're digging in on the Jim Crow 2.0 talking points. It could be defeated with a little bit of change to the filibuster rules. What do you think?
Well, first of all, the Democrats, all who are serving today, all wanted to get rid of the filibuster. And let's be clear about this. They will 100% get rid of the filibuster if, heaven forbid, we lose the Senate. So let's just get that out of the way. It's over if the Democrats take office. In the Senate, the filibuster will no longer exist. Of course, today, it's a different story. All of them will vote to keep it. Unfortunately, on our end, there's at least 4, probably many more Republicans that will not vote to get rid of the filibuster. That's just the facts. So what we have to do is honor the tradition of the Senate. And if we have a rule that says every senator can talk twice during a legislative day, and then once that's exhausted, then we call the question. I think we have to look into that because, look, I think what we have to show the American people is that we're willing to fight for the basic things that they care about, Scott. If we don't show the American people that elected us with a landslide, with a mandate, November of 2024, that we're willing to do whatever it takes to fight to save this country, then they're not going to vote for us again. That's that simple. We have to show them with our actions, not our words, that we're going to fight to save this country. And this is so basic and so elementary. This is the time that we actually have to do this.
That voice you're hearing today, Senator Bernie Moreno of the great state of Ohio. Senator Moreno, thanks for always being generous with your time here on the Scott Jennings Show.
Anytime, Scott, and keep giving him peck.
You got it, brother. We fight them every day. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got a story about a Maryland school board meeting where a woman tried to report Turning Point USA to Child Protective Services. You're going to want to hear this. When we come back, it's Scott Jennings here on Salem. Stay with us.
Truth, justice, and the American way. Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's the Scott Jennings Show.
Let me speak to you for a moment about your wireless service. It's important, actually. You may not know it, but there's a wireless company that you can choose that actually shares your values, invests in your values. The name of the company is Patriot Mobile. It is not just a wireless provider. Patriot Mobile is an activist organization that funds itself by selling top-tier cell phone service. So you sign up with Patriot Mobile, you get premium service on all 3 major U.S. networks. You'll get the same or even better coverage than you have right now. You can get unlimited data plans, mobile hotspots, international roaming, all the stuff that you need. They have it. And on top of it, when you switch to Patriot Mobile, when you pay your bill, you are advancing the values of faith, family, and freedom. Patriot Mobile actually invests in the political causes that you agree with. How many companies do you pay a bill to that you're pretty sure don't share your values? Probably a lot. Well, you can strike a blow for the good guys here and switch over to Patriot Mobile. When you do, you can keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade, whatever you want. Just do it. Take a stand. Go to patriotmobile.com/Scott or call 972-PATRIOT and use promo code SCOTT, and they'll give you a free month of service. That's patriotmobile.com/Scott or call 972-PATRIOT. I encourage you to make the switch today. It is Tuesday, February 17th. Scott Jennings here, Common Sense for the American People, rounding out the show today live from Naples, Florida. Wanted to bring you the story of a busybody from Maryland who went to a school board meeting and tried to turn the Turning Point USA people at the school into Child Protective Services. Let's listen to Cut 13.
In December of 2025, Turning Point USA hosted an event marketed to high school students with food and beverages advertised as an incentive for attendance. While community building opportunities for students are important, this event raises serious concerns related to student safety, parental rights, and governance oversight. All Board of Education members in this room are mandated reporters under state law, as I am. Based on the circumstances surrounding this event, a report was made to Child Protective Services. All of this was provided along with.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, so basically a lady named Nancy goes to the school board meeting and says, I'm sending all this to Child Protective Services because she doesn't want Turning Point USA. She doesn't want high school kids having conservative conversations, I guess, at this school in Maryland, Calvert County, Maryland. The student who's running the Turning Point USA chapter there said his group placed restrictions on the event after receiving hate online, including restricting access for adults they did not know or who were not volunteers or parents of attendees. So apparently there was a bunch of attempted incursions on the group. We have been accused of many things. We have been accused of grooming children, an allegation that a random unnamed man was president of our group and had certain felony charges. I'm the president. I'm 17. I'm a minor. I don't have any felony charges or convictions. This was the statement of the kid who runs Turning Point USA. You know what this speaks to, honestly? By the way, the Assistant Attorney General, Harmeet Dillon, has said that she is now looking into all of this. But you know what this speaks to is this broken-brained viewpoint on the left that they are somehow empowered to regulate all sorts of things in American society right now. We can regulate what laws are being enforced. We can regulate whether you can drive through our streets here in Minneapolis. We can regulate what kind of political speech goes on. Because on the left, you see, speech is violence. That's what they believe. Conservative speech equals violence, and therefore they feel empowered to do something about it. This is the state of affairs in the American left right now in the United States of America. We're done for the day. I really appreciate you listening. We'll be back again tomorrow, traveling through Florida this week. Sincerely appreciate you stopping by. More to come tomorrow. It's Scott Jennings on Salem. See you then.